They say blood is thicker than water, but I learned the hard way that greed is thicker than both. My name is Victoria Ashford, and 3 weeks ago, I discovered that my own sister had stolen not just my wedding dress, but my entire wedding day, while I was attending what she thought was just another boring charity gala. What she didn't know was that the charity event was actually a cover for a high-level security briefing, and the men in suits weren't donors. They were my protection detail. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. You see, everyone in Millbrook Springs thought I was just another trust fund princess, living off daddy's money, planning elaborate weddings and hosting garden parties. My sister Penelope especially loved to remind me how lucky I was to have such an easy life while she worked her way up the corporate ladder at Henderson Associates. She'd roll her eyes whenever I'd mention having to attend another tedious fundraiser or exhausting board meeting, always quick to point out how I didn't understand real work. But here's what nobody knew about Victoria Ashford. Not my family, not my friends, not even my fiancé Trevor until 2 months before our wedding. I wasn't just inheriting money from the Ashford family fortune. I was the primary heir to Ashford Enterprises, one of the largest private security and intelligence firms in North America, the same company that provided protection for Fortune 500 CEOs, government officials, and anyone wealthy enough to have real enemies. The irony wasn't lost on me that while Penelope thought I was wasting my life planning centerpieces and tasting cakes, I was actually attending classified briefings about international threats, reviewing security protocols for high-profile clients, and learning how to spot betrayal from a mile away. Well, everywhere except in my own family, apparently. It all started 3 months ago when I announced my engagement to Trevor Montgomery, a successful architect I'd met at what Penelope assumed was another one of my pointless social events. In reality, it was a secure meeting where Trevor was presenting designs for a new safe house facility. We bonded over blueprints and emergency exit strategies. Hardly the romantic fairy tale everyone imagined. Penelope's reaction to my engagement was interesting. While everyone else was congratulating me, she seemed almost angry. "Must be nice," she said, sipping wine a little too aggressively at the engagement party, "to have everything just fall into your lap. Some of us actually have to work for what we want." I brushed it off. Penelope had always been jealous of what she perceived as my easy life. She didn't know that every charity luncheon I attended was actually a cover for client meetings, or that my shopping trips to New York were really security consultations with federal agencies. The Ashford family had perfected the art of hiding in plain sight for 3 generations. The wedding planning became Penelope's obsession. She inserted herself into every detail, from the venue selection to the flower arrangements. "I just want to help," she'd say, but there was something predatory in how she studied every element of my wedding. She took pictures of everything: the dress fittings, the venue layouts, even the guest list. At the time, I thought she was just being supportive, maybe even living vicariously through my big day since her own love life had been a series of disasters. She was particularly fascinated by my dress, a custom Valentina Rossetti creation worth more than most people's cars. Hand-beaded with Swarovski crystals and imported French lace, it was a masterpiece that had taken 8 months to create. Penelope would find excuses to visit during fittings, always asking detailed questions about the design, the timeline, when it would be delivered. "It's so beautiful, Vic," she'd say, running her fingers along the fabric. "You're so lucky to be able to afford something like this. Some of us will probably end up in something off the rack from David's bridal." The bitterness in her voice should have been a red flag, but I was too caught up in wedding planning to notice. 3 weeks before the wedding, I received what I thought was an invitation to a charity auction in the city. The Meridian Foundation was hosting their annual gala, and as a major donor, my attendance was requested. The invitation was elegant, formal, exactly the kind of event the Ashford family was expected to support publicly. What I didn't realize until I arrived at the downtown Meridian Hotel was that there was no charity auction. The gala was actually an emergency security briefing. Someone had been asking questions about the Ashford family business, making inquiries that had raised flags at the highest levels of our organization. The men in tuxedos weren't philanthropists. They were intelligence operatives, and the auction items were actually case files. Miss Ashford, Agent Harrison briefed me in what appeared to be a coat closet but was actually a secure communications room. We have reason to believe someone close to your family is gathering information about your wedding security arrangements. We need you to maintain your cover while we investigate. My blood ran cold. Someone close to the family. The wedding was in 3 weeks. The guest list, the venue, the timeline, all the details that Penelope had been so interested in suddenly took on a sinister meaning. "Do you have any idea who might have access to your personal information?" Agent Harrison asked. I thought about Penelope's constant presence during wedding planning, her detailed questions, her photography of every element. But surely not. She was my sister. She was jealous, yes, but she wouldn't, would she? "I need to get back," I told Harrison. "If someone is planning something, I need to be there to catch them in the act." That night, driving back to Millbrook Springs, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything I thought I knew about my life was about to change. Little did I know that in less than 72 hours, I'd discover that the person I trusted most in the world had been planning the ultimate betrayal, and that my carefully hidden identity was about to become the only thing standing between my family and complete destruction. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from my wedding planner, Anastasia Cromwell. "Victoria, we have a problem," her voicemail said. "Your dress is missing." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I raced to Valentina's boutique in downtown Millbrook Springs, my heart pounding with a dread I couldn't quite explain. The missing dress had to be some kind of mistake. Maybe a delivery mix-up or a scheduling error, but as I pulled into the parking lot and saw the boutique owner's face through the window, I knew this was much worse than a simple misunderstanding. "Victoria, thank God you're here." Valentina Rossetti rushed toward me the moment I walked through the door. Her usually pristine appearance was disheveled, her hands shaking as she gestured toward the back room. "I've been trying to reach you since yesterday evening. Someone came in with authorization to pick up your dress." My blood turned to ice. "What kind of authorization?" "A signed letter from you, requesting emergency pickup for final alterations at another location." Valentina pulled out a piece of paper from behind the counter. "The signature looked perfect, Victoria. I would never have released it otherwise." I stared at the document in my hands. The signature was indeed perfect, because it was mine. But I had never written this letter. The handwriting was flawless, down to the specific way I dotted my I's and crossed my T's. This wasn't just forgery. This was someone who had studied my writing extensively. "Who picked it up?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. "A woman about your height, brown hair. She said she was your assistant, handling the logistics because you were tied up with pre-wedding appointments." Valentina wrung her hands. "She knew so many details about the dress, the bead pattern, the alterations we'd made, even the special compartment we added for your grandmother's handkerchief." The special compartment. Only 3 people knew about that detail. Myself, Valentina, and Penelope, who had been with me when I'd made that sentimental request during the final fitting. "Did she give you a name?" I managed to ask, though my voice sounded strange even to my own ears. "She said her name was Patricia Ashworth." "Close enough to your family name that I didn't think to question it." Valentina's face crumpled. "Victoria, I'm so sorry. In 20 years of business, nothing like this has ever happened." Patricia Ashworth. Penelope had always hated her real name, said it sounded too old-fashioned. In high school, she'd gone through a phase of trying out different names, and Patricia had been one of her favorites. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found Penelope's number. It went straight to voicemail. Not unusual, since she was often in meetings at Henderson Associates. But when I tried calling her office, her assistant told me something that made my stomach drop. "I'm sorry, Miss Ashford, but Penelope took a personal day today. She said she had important family matters to attend to." Family matters. On a Tuesday, 3 weeks before my wedding. I thanked Valentina and promised to sort everything out, then sat in my car for a full minute, trying to process what was happening. My sister had stolen my wedding dress using a forged letter and a fake name. This wasn't some impulsive act of sibling rivalry, this was premeditated theft. But why? What could she possibly gain from taking my dress? My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Check your social media." Some interesting developments in the Montgomery wedding plans. A friend. With trembling fingers, I opened Instagram. The first thing I saw was a post from the Meridian Country Club, the venue where Trevor and I were supposed to be married in 3 weeks. But instead of our engagement photos, there was a different couple in the spotlight. Congratulations to the beautiful Penelope Ashford and her fiancé Jason Whitmore on their surprise wedding this Saturday. The happy couple will be celebrating at our venue with an intimate ceremony for family and friends. My vision blurred. Penelope was getting married this Saturday at my venue, and if she had my dress. I scrolled through more posts, my hands shaking as the full scope of her plan became clear. She had somehow booked the Meridian Country Club for this weekend, claiming it was an, quote, family event. She'd ordered flowers that looked suspiciously similar to my arrangements. She'd even hired Cromwell Catering, the same company that was supposed to handle my reception. But the worst part wasn't the venue or the vendors, it was the comments on the posts. "Penelope looks absolutely radiant. That dress is stunning. The Ashford family knows how to throw a wedding. So elegant. I heard this dress cost more than my car. Leave it to the Ashfords to spare no expense." She wasn't just stealing my wedding dress, she was stealing my entire wedding, my venue, my vendors, and making everyone believe it was all hers. My phone rang, jarring me from the social media nightmare. The caller ID showed Agent Harrison's secure number. "Miss Ashford, we need to talk immediately. Can you get to the safe house in Riverside?" "I can't," I said, my voice hollow. "My sister just stole my wedding dress and apparently my entire wedding. I think she's the security threat you warned me about." There was a long pause. "Victoria, we've been monitoring chatter about the Ashford family for the past 48 hours. Someone's been selling information about your wedding security arrangements to interested parties. High-level details that only someone with intimate access could know." The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Penelope hadn't just been jealous of my wedding. She'd been using it as cover to gather intelligence about the Ashford family's security protocols. The guest list she'd studied so carefully wasn't just about social networking. It was a target list of high-value individuals who would be vulnerable at my wedding. "Agent Harrison," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my mind, "I think my sister is planning something much bigger than just stealing my dress, and I think her wedding this Saturday is just the beginning. Get to the safe house. Now. We need to debrief you immediately." As I drove toward Riverside, my phone buzzed with another message from the unknown number. "Your sister's wedding is going to be quite the event. Too bad you won't be there to see it. Unless, of course, you want to crash the party. The real question is, does she know who you really are yet? A friend." I stared at the message, a cold realization washing over me. Someone else was involved in this. Someone who knew about both my real identity and Penelope's plan. Someone who was playing us against each other. The game was bigger than I'd thought, and Saturday was only 4 days away. The Riverside safe house looked like an ordinary suburban home from the outside, but I knew better. Behind the white picket fence and carefully maintained garden lay one of Ashford Enterprises' most sophisticated intelligence operations. Agent Harrison was waiting for me in what appeared to be a cozy living room but was actually a high-tech briefing center disguised behind fake family photos and floral wallpaper. "Sit down, Victoria," Harrison said, his expression grimmer than I'd ever seen it. "What I'm about to show you is going to change everything you think you know about your family." He activated a wall panel, revealing multiple screens displaying surveillance footage, financial records, and communication intercepts. My heart stopped when I saw Penelope's face on the central monitor. "Your sister has been under surveillance for 6 months," Harrison began, pulling up a timeline. "It started when we noticed unusual activity around Ashford Enterprises' client database. Someone was accessing classified files using legitimate credentials, but the access patterns were wrong. Too systematic, too thorough." The screen showed login records with Penelope's employee ID, but that was impossible. Penelope worked for Henderson Associates, not Ashford Enterprises. "Agent Harrison, there's been a mistake. Penelope doesn't work for us." "No," he said quietly, "but she's been dating someone who does. Jason Whitmore, you're head of digital security operations." The blood drained from my face. Jason Whitmore, the same Jason who was now Penelope's fiancé according to the social media posts. The same man who had access to every security protocol, every client file, every classified operation run by Ashford Enterprises. "How long have they been together?" I whispered. 18 months. They met at a coffee shop near your corporate headquarters, a meeting we now believe was orchestrated. Harrison pulled up surveillance photos showing Penelope and Jason together, dating back much further than anyone in my family knew about. "She told your family she met him 2 months ago at a business conference." I stared at the photos, watching my sister laugh and hold hands with a man who had been stealing from my family's company for over a year. In one image, they were looking at printed documents over dinner. Documents I could now see bore the Ashford Enterprises logo. "There's more," Harrison continued, his voice heavy. 3 days ago, we intercepted communications indicating that your wedding was being used as cover for a major intelligence operation. The guest list, the security arrangements, the venue layout, everything Jason accessed through your wedding planning was being sold to foreign interests." The screen displayed a series of encrypted messages, decoded by Ashford's intelligence team. As I read them, the true scope of the betrayal became clear. Target confirmed attending: Secretary of Defense Matthews, tech billionaire Rodriguez, oil executive Patterson, Ambassador Chen. The list went on, naming 12 of the most powerful people in North America, all of whom had been invited to my wedding. They weren't just planning to steal information, I realized, my voice barely audible. They were planning an assassination event. "Saturday's wedding," Harrison confirmed. "Your sister's sudden ceremony isn't a love story, Victoria. It's a death trap. Everyone who received a last-minute invitation change thinks they're attending a charming family wedding. Instead, they'll be walking into a coordinated attack." I felt sick. My own sister had spent months infiltrating my life, studying my relationships, learning my habits, all to orchestrate a terrorist attack using my identity as cover. "But why the dress?" I asked, though I was beginning to understand. "Because Penelope Ashford needed to become Victoria Ashford," Harrison explained. "Same height, same build, similar features when professionally styled. In the confusion of a venue attack, witness accounts would place Victoria Ashford at the scene. You'd be blamed for orchestrating the deaths of some of the most powerful people in the country." The room spun as the implications hit me. Not only would I lose everything I cared about, but I'd spend the rest of my life in prison for mass murder if I lived through the aftermath at all. "There's something else," Harrison said, pulling up financial records. "Henderson Associates has been hemorrhaging money for 2 years. Penelope's been embezzling to fund this operation, but she's also been promised a substantial payment upon completion. $25 million to be exact. $25 million, enough to disappear forever, start a new life anywhere in the world, enough to make betraying your own family seem worthwhile." "Who's paying her?" I demanded. "That's where it gets complicated." Harrison's expression darkened further. "The money is coming from Meridian Holdings, a shell company with ties to several hostile foreign governments." but the operation is being coordinated by someone with intimate knowledge of how the Ashford family operates. Someone inside our organization? We believe so. Someone who knew exactly which assets to target, which security protocols to compromise, and how to use your wedding as the perfect cover. Harrison paused. Victoria, we think there's been a mole in Ashford Enterprises for years, and your sister was just the final piece of their plan. I thought about all the family gatherings where business was discussed, all the times Penelope had seemed bored by our conversations about company matters. She hadn't been disinterested. She'd been memorizing every detail. Show me the guest list for Saturday, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my mind. Harrison pulled up the modified invitation list. My blood ran cold as I saw the names. Not only were high-value targets attending, but several Ashford Enterprises board members had received last-minute invitations. My father, my Uncle Charles, even my grandmother, who rarely left her estate anymore. They're not just targeting foreign dignitaries, I realized. They're planning to wipe out the entire Ashford family leadership in one event. And pin it on you, Harrison confirmed. The ultimate inside job, orchestrated by the heir apparent, who supposedly snapped under pressure and decided to eliminate her own family for control of the company. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. Having fun at your little government playdate. Don't worry, Saturday will be much more exciting. Your sister looks beautiful in your dress, by the way. Almost like she was meant to wear it. See you soon. A friend? I showed the message to Harrison, whose face went pale. They know you're here, he said, immediately activating emergency protocols. This safe house is compromised. Alarms began blaring as Harrison grabbed secure communication equipment. All units code black. Safe house Alpha is blown. Initiate immediate evacuation protocols. Through the window, I could see black SUVs pulling up to the house. Not Ashford vehicles. These had government plates. Victoria, Harrison said urgently, there's something I haven't told you. The mole inside Ashford Enterprises? We think it's someone in your family's inner circle. Someone who has been feeding information to hostile foreign governments for years, using your sister as a pawn. Who? I demanded, even as armed figures emerged from the SUVs outside. We don't know yet, but whoever it is, they just sent a kill team to silence you before Saturday. Harrison handed me a secure phone and a weapon I'd been trained to use but hoped I'd never need. From this moment on, trust no one in your family. No one in the company. And whatever you do, don't let them stop you from getting to that wedding. As the sound of boots on the front porch reached us, I realized that my sister stealing my wedding dress was just the beginning. Someone in my own family wanted me dead, and they were willing to murder dozens of innocent people to make it happen. The only question now was whether I could stay alive long enough to stop them. The back door of the safe house led to what looked like an ordinary garden shed, but I knew it connected to an underground tunnel system that Ashford Enterprises had installed throughout Riverside. As Harrison and I ran through the narrow concrete passage, my mind wasn't on the armed men pursuing us. It was on the impossible reality that someone in my own family wanted me dead. Keep moving, Harrison urged, but I could barely focus on his words. Everything I'd believed about my life was crashing down around me. Penelope wasn't just a jealous sister. She was a trained operative who'd spent 18 months infiltrating my family. Jason wasn't just her boyfriend. He was a traitor, selling out everything my family had built. And somewhere in the Ashford inner circle was a mole, who'd been feeding information to foreign enemies for years. We emerged from the tunnel in the basement of an abandoned warehouse 3 blocks away. Harrison immediately began setting up secure communications while I sat on a dusty crate, trying to process the magnitude of what was happening. Victoria, I need you to focus, Harrison said, but his voice sounded distant. We have less than 4 days to prevent a mass assassination, and you're the only one who can get close enough to stop it. But I wasn't listening. Instead, I was remembering every interaction I'd had with Penelope over the past year, seeing them now through the lens of what I knew. Her sudden interest in my social circle, her detailed questions about family business, her insistence on being involved in every aspect of my wedding planning. The memory that hit me hardest was from 6 months ago, when Penelope had asked to borrow my laptop because hers was in the shop. I'd thought nothing of it. We were sisters, we shared everything. But now I realized she'd had access to my personal files, my passwords, my entire digital life. She'd studied me like a subject in a laboratory, learning my handwriting, my habits, my weaknesses. She knew exactly how to forge my signature, I said aloud, the pieces finally clicking together. She's been practicing for months. Victoria, Harrison tried again, but I held up a hand to stop him. Do you know what the worst part is? I asked, my voice surprisingly calm. It's not that she betrayed me. It's not even that she's planning to kill innocent people. It's that she made me doubt myself. I stood up, pacing the small space as clarity began to emerge from the chaos in my mind. For the past year, I've been questioning every instinct I had about people. When something felt off about Jason, I told myself I was being paranoid. When Penelope seemed too interested in my wedding security, I convinced myself I was imagining things. She made me distrust my own judgment. Harrison watched me carefully. Your instincts were right, Victoria. They always were. No, I said firmly, my instincts were better than right. They were trying to warn me that my own family was planning to destroy me. I turned to face him fully. But here's what Penelope doesn't know about me, Agent Harrison. She studied Victoria Ashford, the trust fund princess. She never met Victoria Ashford, the intelligence operative. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like myself again. Not the confused, betrayed sister. Not the victim of an elaborate conspiracy. I was the heir to Ashford Enterprises, trained from childhood to identify threats, neutralize enemies, and protect what mattered most. When my father started preparing me to take over the company, the first thing he taught me was that in the intelligence business, family means nothing if they're working against you, I continued. Blood doesn't buy loyalty. Trust has to be earned every single day. And when someone betrays that trust, you don't get emotional, you get strategic. Harrison's expression shifted as he recognized the change in my demeanor. This wasn't the panicked woman who'd fled the safe house. This was the future head of one of the most powerful intelligence organizations in North America. What are you thinking? He asked. I'm thinking that Penelope and Jason made 3 critical mistakes, I said, pulling out the secure phone Harrison had given me. First, they assumed I was weak. Second, they assumed I was naive. And third, they assumed I'd run away when things got dangerous. I began scrolling through the contacts in the secure phone, looking for numbers I recognized from years of training exercises and family business meetings. Instead of running from Saturday's wedding, I continued, I'm going to attend it, but not as the helpless victim they're expecting. I'm going to walk in there as exactly who I am, the next generation of Ashford leadership, with all the resources that entails. Victoria, you can't. It's a kill box. They'll be expecting you. Good, I said, finding the number I was looking for, because I'll be expecting them too. I dialed Commander Sarah Blackstone, head of Ashford Enterprises' Tactical Response Team. We'd trained together since I was 16, and she'd taught me everything about close protection, threat assessment, and what she called aggressive deterrence. Commander Blackstone, this is Victoria Ashford. I need to activate Protocol 7. There was a brief pause. Protocol 7 was the highest level of personal protection available to Ashford family members, reserved for situations involving imminent threats to company leadership. Miss Ashford, are you certain? Protocol 7 means full tactical deployment. I'm certain. I need a complete security details, surveillance team, and tactical support for a high-risk social event this Saturday. How many hostiles are we expecting? I looked at Harrison, who was monitoring the communications. Unknown number of foreign operatives, at least 1 insider threat, and approximately 50 innocent civilians who need protection. Understood. Where and when? The Meridian Country Club, Saturday afternoon. And Sarah, I need your best people. This isn't just about protecting me. It's about stopping a terrorist attack disguised as a wedding. After ending the call, I turned back to Harrison. Now, I need everything you have on the financial transfers, the communication intercepts, and the guest list modifications. If there's a mole in my family, I'm going to find them before Saturday. What about the kill team that's looking for you? I smiled for the first time in days, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. Let them look. By the time Saturday arrives, they're going to discover that hunting a member of the Ashford family is very different from hunting some helpless socialite. Harrison stared at me for a moment, then nodded slowly. Your father would be proud. My father is going to be furious when he learns someone in our inner circle has been selling us out, I corrected. But first, he's going to be alive, because I'm going to make sure Penelope's wedding becomes the worst day of her life. I began making a list of everything I needed: tactical gear disguised as wedding attire, communication equipment, background checks on every person who'd received a modified invitation, and most importantly, a way to identify the mole before they could warn Penelope that I was coming. Agent Harrison, I said, I need you to do something for me. I need you to leak information that I'm planning to flee the country. Make it believable. Financial transfers, passport activity, whatever it takes. Why? Because while everyone thinks I'm running scared, I'll be preparing for war. And when I walk into that wedding on Saturday, it won't be as Victoria Ashford the victim. I met his eyes. It'll be as Victoria Ashford the hunter. For 18 months, Penelope had been playing a game where she held all the cards. But she'd made one fatal error. She'd forgotten that Ashfords don't just play games. We win them. 24 hours after activating Protocol 7, I stood in a secure facility beneath downtown Millbrook Springs that most people didn't even know existed. The Ashford Enterprises Command Center stretched across an entire city block underground, housing everything from satellite communication arrays to tactical weapons storage. But what impressed visitors most was the wall of monitors displaying real-time intelligence from around the globe. A reminder that the Ashford family business wasn't just about providing security for wealthy clients. We were one of the primary intelligence contractors for 3 different government agencies. Welcome to the real family business, I said to Agent Harrison as we walked through the main operations floor. His jaw dropped as he took in the scope of what he was seeing. Dozens of analysts working at computer stations, tactical teams reviewing mission briefings, and enough high-tech surveillance equipment to monitor half the eastern seaboard. I knew Ashford Enterprises was big, Harrison said slowly, but this is what happens when your family has been in the intelligence business for 4 generations, I finished. My great-grandfather started with a small private investigation firm. My grandfather expanded into corporate security during World War II. My father built the modern operation you see today, and I'm about to inherit all of it. Commander Blackstone approached us, carrying a tablet filled with tactical assessments. Miss Ashford, your security detail is ready for briefing. But first, you need to see what we've discovered about Saturday's operation. She led us to a secure briefing room, where a 3-dimensional holographic display showed the Meridian Country Club layout. Red dots marked potential threat positions, while blue indicators showed where my security team would be positioned. The wedding venue has been under surveillance for the past 18 hours, Blackstone began. We've identified at least 12 individuals with military or intelligence training who've been conducting reconnaissance around the property. They're not wedding guests. The hologram zoomed in on photographic evidence. Men in civilian clothes, photographing building entrances, studying sight lines, and marking escape routes. Professional surveillance that confirmed everything Harrison had told me about the assassination plot. There's more, Blackstone continued. We intercepted communications indicating that the attack is scheduled to begin during the ceremony itself. They're planning to use the wedding as cover to eliminate multiple high-value targets simultaneously. How many of our people will be in position? I asked. 36 operatives disguised as catering staff, photographers, musicians, and wedding guests. Additionally, we have sniper teams positioned on 3 surrounding buildings and a tactical response unit standing by 2 minutes away. I studied the holographic display, noting the sophisticated planning that had gone into both the attack and our counter-operation. What about civilian protection? Every legitimate guest will be wearing a discreet tracking device, disguised as either a boutonniere or corsage pin. If shooting starts, our people will know exactly who to protect and who to neutralize. Agent Harrison looked overwhelmed by the military precision of the operation. Victoria, this is a small army you're deploying. Because we're not just stopping a terrorist attack, I replied. We're protecting the future of American intelligence operations. Look at this guest list again. The hologram displayed photographs and biographical information for each invited guest. Secretary of Defense Matthews, in charge of military intelligence budgets. Tech billionaire Rodriguez, whose companies provided encrypted communications for federal agencies. Oil executive Patterson, who controlled energy resources crucial to national security operations. If they succeed in eliminating these people, it won't just be a tragedy, I explained. It will cripple American intelligence capabilities for the next decade. Foreign governments will have successfully decapitated our entire network in a single coordinated strike. And they would have pinned it all on you, Harrison added grimly. Which brings us to our next problem, Blackstone interjected. We still haven't identified the mole inside your family organization. Whoever it is has been providing detailed intelligence about Ashford operations for years. They know our protocols, our capabilities, our response procedures. She activated another display showing financial records and communication patterns. We've narrowed it down to 5 possible suspects, all with access to the information that's been compromised. The photos that appeared made my blood run cold. Uncle Charles, my father's brother and the company's chief financial officer. Aunt Miranda, who handled legal affairs for all family business. Cousin Robert, head of our European operations. My father's longtime assistant, Eleanor Davidson, who had access to every classified document that crossed his desk. And most shocking of all, Trevor. My fiancé? I whispered, staring at Trevor's photo on the screen. He's had access to your personal communications, your wedding planning details, and through you, sensitive family information, Blackstone explained gently. The timeline matches his introduction to your life. I felt sick. First Penelope, now possibly Trevor. Was everyone I trusted working against me? However, Blackstone continued, we have a plan to identify the mole during Saturday's operation. We're going to feed different pieces of false information to each suspect and see which version reaches the enemy. She displayed a tactical grid showing how misinformation would be distributed. Uncle Charles will be told you're planning to enter through the main entrance. Aunt Miranda will hear you're coming in through the kitchen. Cousin Robert gets intelligence that you'll arrive by helicopter. Eleanor will be informed you're already inside, hidden among the catering staff. And Trevor will believe you're not coming at all, that you've fled the country. Whichever story the enemy prepares for will tell us who's been selling us out, I realized. Exactly. But Victoria, there's something else you need to know. Blackstone's expression grew even more serious. We believe the mole has been compromised for much longer than we initially thought. Some of the intelligence they've provided has led to the deaths of Ashford operatives in the field. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't just about stopping Saturday's attack. This was about bringing justice for my own people who had died because someone in my family had betrayed them. How many? I asked quietly. 7 confirmed deaths over the past 3 years, all in situations where the enemy had suspiciously detailed intelligence about our operations. 7 of my people, 7 men and women who had trusted the Ashford family to protect them, who had died because someone I called family had sold their lives for money. "Show me their files," I said. Blackstone hesitated. "Victoria, perhaps you should." "Show me their files," I repeated, my voice carrying the authority I'd inherited along with the Ashford name. The hologram displayed 7 faces: agents I'd known personally, operatives who'd protected my family for years, good people who'd died in foreign countries because someone had given away their positions, their identities, their mission parameters. Agent Martinez, killed in Prague when his safe-house location was compromised. Agent Chen, assassinated in Singapore after her cover identity was blown. Agent Thompson, who died in a supposedly routine extraction that turned into an ambush. "I want them all alive," I said finally, my voice deadly calm. "When we identify them on Saturday, I want them taken alive so they can stand trial for treason and murder." "Understood," Blackstone replied. "And I want to be the one who confronts them," I added. "When this is over, when we've stopped the attack and saved the innocent people, I want 5 minutes alone with whoever sold out my family." Harrison and Blackstone exchanged glances. They could both hear the ice in my voice, the cold fury that came from finally understanding the true scope of the betrayal I was facing. "There's one more thing," I said, turning back to the tactical display. "I want every member of my security detail to understand something. On Saturday, I'm not just Victoria Ashford, future heir to a family business. I'm the operational commander of this mission. My word is final, my orders are absolute, and anyone who questions my authority in the field will be removed from the operation immediately." "Victoria," Harrison started, "are you sure you're ready for this kind of responsibility?" I looked at him, then at Blackstone, then at the faces of my fallen operatives still displayed on the holographic screen. "Agent Harrison, my family has been preparing me for this my entire life. What I wasn't prepared for was the possibility that the enemy would come from within." I straightened my shoulders, feeling the weight of command settling around me like armor. "But now that I know, I'm going to handle this the way an Ashford handles all threats to the family." "How's that?" Blackstone asked. I smiled, and it was the same cold expression my father wore when he was about to destroy someone who had threatened his family. Completely. Friday morning, less than 24 hours before Penelope's wedding, I sat in my father's private study reviewing the intelligence files that would determine who lived and who died tomorrow. The room felt different now that I knew the scope of the betrayal we were facing. Every family photo on the walls could contain the face of a traitor. Every piece of furniture might have been bugged by someone we trusted. My father, James Ashford, sat across from me, his face aged 10 years since I'd briefed him on the situation 12 hours earlier. The man who had built one of the most successful intelligence operations in North America was struggling to accept that someone in his inner circle had been systematically destroying everything he'd worked for. "Show me the financial analysis again," he said quietly, reaching for the classified folder that detailed 3 years of suspicious transactions. I opened the file, spreading bank records across his mahogany desk. Someone has been receiving regular payments of $50,000 every month for the past 36 months. The money comes through a series of shell companies, but our analysts traced it back to the same Meridian Holdings that's funding tomorrow's attack. $1.8 million, my father calculated grimly. The price of betraying your own family, apparently. Commander Blackstone entered the study carrying a secure tablet. "Mr. Ashford, Miss Ashford, we have updates from the field surveillance teams." She activated the tablet's display, showing real-time footage from hidden cameras positioned around the Meridian Country Club. "The venue is crawling with hostile operatives conducting final reconnaissance. We've identified 17 individuals with confirmed military or intelligence backgrounds who are not on any legitimate guest list." The footage was chilling. Men in maintenance uniforms studying the building's electrical systems. Women disguised as floral delivery personnel measuring distances between tables. A team posing as security consultants who were actually mapping escape routes and identifying choke points where maximum casualties could be achieved. They're not just planning an assassination, I realized, watching the systematic way they were preparing the venue. They're planning a massacre. Our psychological profile suggests they want maximum media impact, Blackstone confirmed. The death of prominent government officials at a family wedding will send a message that nowhere is safe, no one is beyond their reach. My father stood up, pacing to the window that overlooked the Ashford estate grounds. In 40 years of intelligence work, I've never seen anything this ambitious. The coordination, the resources, the long-term planning. This is a state-sponsored operation. Which brings us to our next discovery, Blackstone said, pulling up classified documents on her tablet. We intercepted communications between Meridian Holdings and representatives from 3 different foreign governments. This isn't just about eliminating American intelligence assets. They're planning to use the attack as justification for a coordinated response against Western intelligence operations worldwide. The scope of what we were facing kept expanding. Saturday's wedding wasn't just a terrorist attack. It was the opening move in what could become the largest intelligence war in modern history. What about the mole identification operation? I asked. We distributed the false intelligence to all 5 suspects yesterday evening, Blackstone reported. Uncle Charles was told you would enter through the main entrance at precisely 2:30 p.m. Aunt Miranda received information that you planned to infiltrate through the kitchen service area. Cousin Robert was informed you would arrive by helicopter and land on the club's helipad. Eleanor Davidson was told you were already inside, working undercover as part of the catering staff. And Trevor? My father asked, though I could see he dreaded the answer. Trevor was informed that you had fled the country and would not be attending the wedding at all, Blackstone finished. I felt a stab of pain at the mention of Trevor's name. Despite everything that had happened, part of me still hoped he wasn't involved in the conspiracy. The man I'd planned to marry, who knew my dreams and fears, who had held me during nightmares about the dangerous nature of my family's business. Was he really just another enemy wearing a familiar face? We should know which story they believed within the next few hours, Blackstone continued. Our surveillance teams are monitoring the venue for any changes in defensive positioning or tactical preparation that would indicate they're expecting you from a specific direction. My secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message from our field team leader, Agent Martinez. Not the Martinez who had died in Prague, but his younger brother who had joined Ashford Enterprises specifically to help catch his sibling's killer. Field Team Alpha reporting unusual activity at venue service entrance. Multiple hostiles repositioning to cover kitchen access points. Recommend immediate tactical assessment. My blood ran cold. The kitchen service area. That was the false intelligence we'd fed to Aunt Miranda. It's her, I said quietly, showing the message to my father in Blackstone. Aunt Miranda is the mole. My father's face went white. Miranda had been his sister-in-law for 25 years, had attended every family gathering, had been trusted with the most sensitive legal aspects of our business operations. She'd been at my birthday parties, my graduation, my engagement celebration. She'd helped raise me after my mother died. Are you certain? He asked, though I could see he was already accepting the truth. The enemy is preparing for me to enter through the service area, I said, pulling up tactical maps on my own tablet. That means Miranda told them I would be coming through the kitchen. She's been selling us out for 3 years. Blackstone was already coordinating with her field teams. All units, we have confirmed mole identification. Subject is Miranda Ashford, Chief Legal Counsel. Consider her armed and extremely dangerous. Do not approach without backup. But I was thinking about something else. All the times over the past 3 years when Miranda had been present during family business discussions, all the classified information she'd had access to, all the strategic decisions she'd influenced with her legal advice. She didn't just sell information, I realized. She's been actively sabotaging our operations. Every major contract we lost, every deal that fell through at the last minute, every time our competitors seemed to know our strategy in advance. That was her. I opened my laptop and began accessing financial records that only family members could view. What I found confirmed my worst fears. "Look at this," I said, showing them the screen. Every major Ashford Enterprises setback over the past 3 years corresponds to a payment into Miranda's offshore accounts. She wasn't just providing intelligence, she was actively working to destroy our business from the inside. The pattern was undeniable. When we lost the Pentagon security contract, Miranda received a payment. When our European operations were compromised, she got another transfer. When Agent Martinez and the others were killed, she was paid bonuses. "She's been orchestrating our destruction piece by piece," my father said, his voice hollow. "Using her position as family legal counsel to undermine everything we've built." "There's more," I said grimly, accessing personnel files that painted an even darker picture. She recommended Jason Whitmore for the head of digital security position. She's the one who brought him into the company. This entire operation has been orchestrated by her from the beginning. Blackstone looked up from her tactical communications. "Miss Ashford, we have a problem. Our surveillance indicates that Miranda is not at her home or office. She's missing." "She's at the venue," I said with certainty. "She's going to be at tomorrow's wedding to make sure everything goes according to plan. She wants to see her family destroyed with her own eyes." My father walked back to his desk, pulling out a secure communication device I'd never seen before. "This is James Ashford, authorization code Alpha 77. I'm requesting immediate implementation of family justice protocols." I'd heard whispers about family justice protocols, ancient Ashford traditions for dealing with betrayal from within the organization. Procedures that existed outside normal legal channels, designed to handle threats that law enforcement couldn't or wouldn't address. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Miranda Ashford has committed treason against this family and murder against our people," my father said, his voice carrying a cold finality I'd never heard before. "Tomorrow, during the wedding operation, she will face Ashford justice. And if she tries to run?" My father looked at me with eyes that showed exactly where I'd inherited my capacity for calculated ruthlessness. "She won't get the chance." As Friday night fell over Millbrook Springs, I realized that tomorrow's wedding would settle more than just the terrorist attack. It would determine whether the Ashford family legacy survived, or whether decades of intelligence work died with us. Miranda had made her choice 3 years ago when she decided to betray her own family for money. Tomorrow, she would discover what that choice really cost. Saturday morning arrived with deceptive beauty, clear skies, gentle breeze, perfect weather for a wedding that was actually going to be a battleground. I stood in the armory beneath Ashford Enterprises headquarters, watching Commander Blackstone's team prepare equipment that would either save dozens of lives or become evidence in the largest domestic terrorism case in American history. "Final weapons check," Blackstone announced to the 36 operatives who would be infiltrating the Meridian Country Club over the next 4 hours. Each one wore civilian clothing appropriate for their cover identity, but I knew that beneath their formal attire was enough firepower to level the entire venue if necessary. Agent Rodriguez, disguised as a wedding photographer, adjusted the telephoto lens that concealed a sniper rifle. Overwatch positions Alpha through Delta are confirmed secure. We have clear sight lines to the altar, reception area, and all primary exit points. Agent Thompson, sister to the Thompson who had died in the Singapore ambush Miranda orchestrated, checked her earpiece while dressed as a member of the catering staff. "Kitchen infiltration team ready. We've identified 12 hostile operatives already inside the venue, posing as vendors and staff." The precision of the operation was beautiful and terrifying. Every detail had been planned with military exactness. Every contingency accounted for, every threat assessed and neutralized before it could develop. This was what the Ashford family did when we stopped pretending to be ordinary business people and revealed ourselves as the intelligence dynasty we really were. "Miss Ashford," Blackstone said, approaching me with a garment bag that looked deceptively normal, "your tactical wedding attire is ready." I unzipped the bag to reveal what appeared to be an elegant navy blue dress, suitable for attending a family wedding. But I could feel the lightweight body armor integrated into the fabric, see the nearly invisible communication equipment woven into the neckline, and notice the specially designed pockets that would hold weapons without creating visible lines. Kevlar threading throughout the bodice and skirt, Blackstone explained. Ceramic trauma plates in the torso area. The shoes have titanium toe caps and concealed blades in the heels. Your purse contains a .38 caliber pistol, 3 spare magazines, smoke grenades, and emergency medical supplies. I held up the dress, marveling at how innocent it looked, despite being designed for warfare. What about communication? Subdermal microphone at your collarbone, nearly invisible earpiece, and a panic button disguised as your engagement ring. If you're in immediate danger, twist the ring twice, and every operative in the venue will converge on your position within 30 seconds. My engagement ring, the symbol of my relationship with Trevor, who might be working with the people trying to kill me. The irony wasn't lost on me that the ring he'd given me would now be my lifeline in a battle he might have helped orchestrate. There's something else, Blackstone continued, producing a second garment bag. We found your original wedding dress. I stared at the bag, my heart racing. Where? Miranda's house. Our search team discovered it in her bedroom closet, along with detailed photographs of you wearing it during fittings. She's been studying you, Victoria, learning your mannerisms, your posture, your gestures. She was planning to use Penelope as a decoy while she escaped in your identity. The thought of Miranda wearing my dress, pretending to be me while innocent people died, filled me with a cold rage that I'd never experienced before. This wasn't just about stopping a terrorist attack anymore. It was about preventing the complete destruction of everything that defined who I was. I want to see it, I said. Blackstone hesitated. Victoria, perhaps that's not. I want to see what she did to my dress. She unzipped the bag slowly, revealing the Valentina Rossetti creation that had taken 8 months to design and create. But it wasn't the dress I remembered. Miranda had altered it, shortening the sleeves to match her proportions, adjusting the neckline to accommodate her different build. She had taken something that was uniquely mine and modified it to serve her deception. She ruined it, I whispered, touching the altered fabric. We can have it restored, Blackstone offered. No, I zipped the bag closed with finality. I don't want it back. That dress was meant for a different life, one where I trusted the people I loved and believed family meant something. That Victoria Ashford died when I learned the truth about Miranda. I turned back to the tactical dress, feeling its weight and purpose. This is who I am now. This is who I need to be. My father appeared in the armory, dressed in what looked like a standard business suit but which I knew contained the same protective modifications as my dress. Final briefing in 5 minutes, he announced. All team leaders report to the command center. As the operatives filed out, my father approached me with an expression I'd rarely seen, paternal concern mixed with professional respect. Victoria, you don't have to do this. We can handle the operation without putting you at risk. Dad, we've been over this. I'm the only one who can get close enough to Miranda without raising suspicion. Every hostile operative at that venue has studied photographs of me, learned my habits, planned for my presence. If I don't show up, they'll know something is wrong. And if something goes wrong, if the plan fails, I'll have sent my daughter into a kill zone. I looked at him directly, letting him see the same cold determination that had made the Ashford family legendary in intelligence circles. If something goes wrong, they'll discover that they underestimated what it means to threaten an Ashford. Miranda thinks she knows me because she helped raise me. She has no idea who I became when you started training me to take over this company. My secure phone buzzed with a message from Agent Martinez in the field. Hostile activity increasing at venue. Subject Miranda arrived 30 minutes ago, supervising final preparations. Recommend accelerated timeline. Miranda was there. After 3 years of betraying her family, selling out her nephew's life, orchestrating the deaths of loyal operatives, She was finally going to face the consequences of her choices. "Timeline moved up," I announced to the team. "We deploy in 1 hour instead of 2. Miranda is already at the venue, which means the attack could begin earlier than anticipated." Commander Blackstone nodded grimly. "All teams, prepare for immediate deployment. Operation Wedding Crasher is now active." As I changed into my tactical dress, I caught my reflection in the armory's mirror. The woman looking back at me bore only a superficial resemblance to the Victoria Ashford who had discovered her wedding dress missing just 4 days ago. That woman had been naive, trusting, vulnerable to the kind of emotional manipulation that Miranda had perfected over decades. This woman was a weapon disguised as a wedding guest. "Miss Ashford," Agent Thompson called out, "your transportation is ready." I walked through the command center one final time, noting the dozens of analysts monitoring the operation, the satellite feeds showing aerial views of the venue, the communication arrays that would coordinate what might become the largest counterterrorism operation ever conducted at a social event. At the elevator that would take me to the surface, my father caught my arm. "Be careful," he said simply. "I will be, but Dad, Miranda won't be." As the elevator rose toward street level, carrying me toward a confrontation 3 years in the making, I thought about the innocent people who would be at that wedding. Guests who had no idea they were walking into a trap, family members who trusted that their attendance at a simple ceremony wouldn't cost them their lives. They were counting on me to protect them, even though they didn't know it. More importantly, 7 dead agents were counting on me to deliver justice for their murders. Miranda Ashford was about to learn that betraying the family had consequences she'd never imagined. And I was going to be the one to teach her that lesson. The Meridian Country Club looked like something from a fairy tale as I approached the main entrance, my tactical dress swaying innocently in the afternoon breeze. White roses adorned every surface. Elegant guests in designer clothing chatted on the manicured lawn, and string quartet music drifted through the air. No one would guess that beneath this perfect veneer, 2 armies were preparing for war. "Overwatch Alpha, target approaching main entrance," I heard Agent Rodriguez's voice through my nearly invisible earpiece. "Victoria looks beautiful, by the way." "Very convincing, bride's sister." Despite everything, I almost smiled. Even in the middle of a counterterrorism operation, my people maintained their sense of humor. It was one of the things that made Ashford operatives different from government agents. We never forgot that we were fighting to protect not just lives, but the way of life that made jokes possible in the first place. "Kitchen team, report," I sub-vocalized, the microphone at my collarbone picking up my whispered words. 12 hostiles confirmed inside, Agent Thompson responded. "They're positioned near all major gathering areas, waiting for some kind of signal to begin coordinated attack." I paused at the entrance, adjusting my purse to ensure quick access to my concealed weapon while appearing to check my appearance in the glass doors. What I was actually doing was scanning for the faces I'd memorized from surveillance photos, the 17 foreign operatives who had infiltrated this peaceful wedding venue. I spotted 3 immediately, a man in a server's uniform whose military posture gave him away despite his civilian disguise. A woman arranging flowers who kept glancing at her watch with the nervous energy of someone waiting for a specific time. A photographer whose camera equipment looked more tactical than artistic. But I didn't see Miranda anywhere in the main gathering area, which meant she was likely in the bridal preparation room with Penelope, putting the finishing touches on whatever sick plan she'd spent 3 years developing. "Miss Ashford?" A familiar voice behind me made my blood freeze. I turned to find Trevor approaching, dressed in an elegant gray suit that made him look devastatingly handsome. For a moment, my heart forgot everything I'd learned about betrayal and moles and terrorist attacks. This was the man I'd planned to marry, who had proposed to me on a beach in Maine, who knew exactly how I liked my coffee and what movies made me cry. "Trevor," I managed, hoping my voice sounded more casual than I felt. "I wasn't expecting to see you here." Penelope invited me last minute, he said, studying my face with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. She said you might need emotional support, given everything that's happened. Everything that's happened. Did he mean my discovery of the dress theft? Or did he know about the larger conspiracy? Was he here as my concerned fiancé? Or was he one of the people trying to kill me? That's very thoughtful of her, I replied carefully. Have you seen her? I should congratulate the happy couple. She's inside with Miranda, getting ready for the ceremony, Trevor said. Then, more quietly, Victoria, we need to talk. There are things about today that you don't understand. My hand moved instinctively toward my purse, fingers finding the outline of my concealed weapon. What kind of things? But before Trevor could respond, chaos erupted around us. A server carrying champagne glasses suddenly dropped his tray, the crash of breaking crystal masking the sound of his hand moving inside his jacket. The flower arranger I'd spotted earlier began walking quickly toward the crowd of guests, her movements too purposeful, too focused. All units, hostile movement detected, I heard Commander Blackstone's voice in my earpiece. Possible early initiation of attack sequence. Something had gone wrong. The attack was starting now during the pre-ceremony gathering, not during the planned coordinated strike. Which meant either the enemy had detected our presence, or someone had changed the timeline without warning their own people. Victoria, we need to get you out of here, Trevor said urgently, grabbing my arm. Right now. That's when I knew. His grip was too strong, too practiced. His eyes were scanning the crowd, not with concern, but with tactical assessment, and most tellingly, he wasn't surprised by the sudden shift in the operative's behavior. Trevor was one of them. Let go of me, I said quietly, but he only tightened his grip. I'm trying to save your life, he hissed. The original plan was to frame you for the attack, but something's changed. Miranda decided she wants you dead instead of captured. Miranda decided. Not they decided or the plan changed. Miranda decided. Which meant Trevor knew exactly who was running this operation. How long? I asked, my voice deadly calm. How long what? How long have you been working with Miranda to destroy my family? Trevor's face went pale as he realized I knew the truth. Victoria, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been lying to me since the day we met? That every moment we shared was part of an operation to infiltrate the Ashford family? That you were planning to marry me just to get better access to classified information? Around us, wedding guests continued their pleasant conversations, completely unaware that they were seconds away from becoming casualties in an intelligence war. I could see our operatives moving into position, but they were maintaining their cover, waiting for my signal or for the hostiles to make the first move. It wasn't supposed to be like this, Trevor said desperately. I was recruited to get close to your family, yes, but what I felt for you became real. The engagement, the wedding plans, everything we built together, that was real. Really? Then why are you here helping them kill me? Because Miranda threatened to expose everything if I didn't cooperate. She has evidence that would send me to prison for treason. I had no choice. I looked at this man I'd planned to spend my life with, seeing him clearly for the first time. You always had a choice, Trevor. You chose money and self-preservation over the people you claimed to love. Victoria, please. Agent Thompson, this is Victoria, I subvocalized. Target confirmed at main entrance. Trevor Montgomery is hostile. Repeat, my fiancé is working with the enemy. Trevor's eyes widened as he realized I was communicating with my security team. You're wearing surveillance equipment. I'm wearing a lot more than that, I said, my hand moving to the panic button disguised as my engagement ring. The ring he had given me, now weaponized against him. Did you really think the Ashford family would send me into a terrorist attack without protection? That's when Trevor made his mistake. Instead of trying to talk his way out of the situation, he reached inside his jacket for what I assumed was a weapon. But I'd been training for situations like this since I was 16 years old. In one smooth motion, I grabbed his wrist with my left hand, preventing him from drawing whatever he was reaching for, while my right hand pulled the concealed .38 from my purse. The entire movement took less than 2 seconds. "Don't," I said quietly, pressing the barrel against his ribs in a way that looked like an intimate embrace to any casual observer. There are 36 Ashford operatives in this venue, and every one of them will put a bullet in you if I give the word. Trevor froze, finally understanding that he had drastically underestimated the woman he'd been manipulating for months. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued, my voice barely above a whisper. "You're going to smile and walk with me toward the bridal preparation room where Miranda is waiting. You're going to act like the loving fiancé trying to support his upset bride-to-be. And if you try to warn anyone or signal the other operatives, you'll discover that everything you thought you knew about Victoria Ashford was carefully constructed fiction." "Victoria," he started, but I cut him off. "The woman you thought you were manipulating doesn't exist, Trevor. I've been trained since childhood to identify threats, neutralize enemies, and protect my family's interests. You fell in love with a cover identity. Now you're going to meet the real Victoria Ashford." As we began walking toward the country club's interior, Trevor moving stiffly beside me with my gun pressed against his side, I spotted Miranda through a window in the bridal preparation room. She was adjusting something on Penelope's dress, my dress, with the satisfied expression of someone whose long-term plan was finally coming together. She had no idea that her plan had just collapsed, or that the niece she'd helped raise was about to remind her why betraying the Ashford family was always a fatal mistake. "All units," I subvocalized as we approached the interior of the venue, "target acquired and contained, proceeding to primary objective. Be ready for full engagement on my signal." Trevor looked at me with a mixture of fear and amazement. "Who are you?" I met his eyes with the cold smile that every Ashford learned to wear when business became personal. "I'm the woman who's going to make sure you and Miranda never hurt anyone, ever again." The bridal preparation room at Meridian Country Club was a vision of white silk and betrayal. Through the half-open door, I could see Penelope standing before a full-length mirror in my stolen wedding dress, while Miranda made final adjustments to the veil that should have been mine. The scene looked like something from a bridal magazine, if you ignored the fact that both women were preparing for what they believed would be a mass murder. "Remember," I whispered to Trevor as we approached, my gun still pressed discreetly against his ribs, "one wrong word, and you'll discover how quickly a wedding can become a funeral." Trevor nodded stiffly, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. Whatever training he'd received as a foreign intelligence operative clearly hadn't prepared him for the possibility that his target might be better at this game than he was. "Miranda?" I called out sweetly as we entered the room. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." Both women turned, and the expressions on their faces told me everything I needed to know about how my arrival fit into their plans. Penelope looked genuinely surprised. Apparently, she really had believed I was just a jealous sister stealing her thunder, not the primary target of an international assassination plot. But Miranda's face went white with a fear that confirmed every suspicion I'd harbored. "Victoria," Miranda said, her voice artificially calm. "What a lovely surprise. I wasn't expecting you to attend." "I'm sure you weren't," I replied, still maintaining the facade of a concerned family member while keeping Trevor positioned between myself and any potential threats. "After all, it would be rather inconvenient if the person you're planning to frame for mass murder actually showed up to defend herself." The silence that followed was deafening. Penelope looked confused, glancing between Miranda and me as if trying to solve a puzzle she didn't even know existed. Miranda, however, was calculating, her legal mind working through the implications of my unexpected appearance and obvious knowledge of the conspiracy. "I have no idea what you're talking about," Miranda said finally. "Trevor, perhaps you should take Victoria outside. She seems to be having some kind of breakdown." "Oh, Trevor's not going anywhere," I said pleasantly. "Are you, darling?" Trevor opened his mouth, probably to play along with Miranda's suggestion, but I pressed the gun barrel harder against his ribs. "Actually," he said shakily, "I think we should all hear what Victoria has to say." "How thoughtful," I smiled. "Let me start with something simple. Aunt Miranda, would you like to explain why you've been receiving $50,000 a month from Meridian Holdings for the past 3 years?" Penelope's confusion deepened. "What's Meridian Holdings?" "It's a shell company," I explained, never taking my eyes off Miranda, "that funnels money from hostile foreign governments to people willing to betray their own families. Miranda has made quite a comfortable living selling Ashford Enterprises secrets to our enemies." "That's ridiculous," Miranda snapped, but I could see her mind working, trying to figure out how much I actually knew versus how much I was guessing. "Is it? Then perhaps you can explain why Jason Whitmore. You remember Jason, the head of digital security you personally recommended for hiring, has been systematically copying our client databases and security protocols for the past 18 months? Penelope gasped. "Jason is my fiancé, he wouldn't." "Jason is a foreign intelligence operative," I interrupted. "And his relationship with you was orchestrated by Miranda as part of a long-term plan to infiltrate and destroy our family's business." I reached into my purse with my free hand, pulling out a tablet that contained some of the evidence Blackstone's team had compiled. "Would you like to see the bank records, Miranda? The communication intercepts? The photographs of you meeting with known enemy agents?" Miranda's composure finally cracked. "You have no proof of anything." "I have proof of everything," I corrected. "Including the fact that your intelligence leaks led directly to the deaths of 7 Ashford operatives over the past 3 years. Agent Martinez in Prague, Agent Chen in Singapore, Agent Thompson in Morocco. Should I continue?" At the mention of the dead agents, something changed in Miranda's expression. The fear was replaced by cold calculation, and I realized she was done pretending to be the loving aunt who had helped raise me. "You always were too smart for your own good," she said quietly. "Even as a child, you asked too many questions, noticed too many details. I told them you'd be a problem." "Told who?" Penelope demanded, her voice rising with panic. "Miranda, what is she talking about?" "She's talking about the fact that today's wedding is actually a terrorist attack," I said, still speaking calmly despite the magnitude of what I was revealing. "The guest list includes some of the most powerful people in American intelligence and government. The plan was to eliminate them all during the ceremony and frame me for orchestrating their deaths." Penelope staggered backward, her hand going to her throat. "That's impossible. This is my wedding. Jason loves me." "Jason is using you," I said more gently, "just like Miranda has been using all of us. The only question is whether you're a willing participant or another victim." Before Penelope could respond, Miranda made her move. In one fluid motion, she grabbed a crystal vase from the dressing table and hurled it at my head, while simultaneously diving toward a small handbag I'd noticed, but not considered threatening. But I'd been expecting something like this. As the vase shattered against the wall where my head had been a split second earlier, I shoved Trevor hard toward Miranda while drawing my weapon fully. The sound of my sister screaming mixed with the crash of the two of them colliding as Miranda's hand closed around whatever she'd been reaching for in her bag. "All units, shots fired in bridal preparation room," I said clearly, knowing my communication system would pick up my words. "Immediate assistance required." Miranda rolled away from Trevor and I saw what she'd been reaching for. A small pistol that looked like it had been custom-made for concealment in feminine evening wear. 30 years, she snarled, pointing the weapon at me. 30 years I've watched your father build this empire while treating me like a secretary with a law degree. Do you have any idea what it's like to be the smartest person in the room and have everyone ignore you because you weren't born with the right last name? So you decided to burn it all down, I said, keeping my own weapon trained on her while positioning myself to shield Penelope, who was huddled in the corner in shock. All those people who trusted you, all those agents who died because of information you sold, that was your revenge for feeling underappreciated? Those agents were casualties of war, Miranda replied coldly. And after today, when the American intelligence community is in shambles and foreign governments are paying me millions for my services, I'll finally get the recognition I deserve. The only thing you're going to get, I said, is a cell in federal prison, if you're lucky. That's when the door burst open, and Commander Blackstone appeared with 3 tactical operatives, their weapons drawn and trained on Miranda. But instead of surrendering, Miranda smiled. "You're too late," she said. "The attack sequence has already begun. In approximately 3 minutes, every high-value target at this wedding will be dead, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." As if summoned by her words, the sound of gunfire erupted from the main reception area, followed by screaming and the crash of overturning tables. All guests down, I heard Agent Rodriguez's voice through my earpiece. "Multiple hostiles engaging. Repeat, we are under attack." Miranda's smile widened as she looked at me. "Your choice, Victoria. You can stay here and arrest me, or you can try to save the innocent people who are about to die because you couldn't stop this in time." I looked at Blackstone, who nodded grimly. She and her team could handle Miranda. My real responsibility was to the civilians who were about to become casualties in a war they didn't even know they were fighting. "Take her alive if possible," I told Blackstone, "but if she resists—" "Understood," Blackstone replied. I turned toward the door, then looked back at Miranda one final time. "You're wrong about one thing, Aunt Miranda. I did stop this in time, you just don't know it yet." As I ran toward the sound of gunfire, leaving Trevor zip-tied on the floor and Miranda facing the barrel of multiple assault rifles, I heard Penelope call out behind me. "Victoria, what about me? What do I do?" I paused at the doorway. "You survive, Penelope, and then you help us pick up the pieces." The main reception area was chaos, but it was controlled chaos. Every civilian was on the ground behind overturned tables that I realized had been strategically reinforced. Every hostile operative was being engaged by someone who was clearly better trained and better prepared. This wasn't a terrorist attack anymore. It was an Ashford family demonstration of what happened when you threatened the people we protected. And Miranda was about to learn that some lessons can only be taught once. The main reception area of Meridian Country Club looked like a war zone, but it was the most beautiful war zone I'd ever seen. Every single hostile operative who had infiltrated the wedding was now zip-tied on the ground, their weapons confiscated, their escape routes blocked by Ashford personnel who had been waiting for this moment for months. The 17 foreign agents who thought they were conducting a sophisticated terrorist attack had instead walked directly into the most comprehensive counterintelligence trap in modern American history. "All hostiles secured," Agent Rodriguez reported through my earpiece as I surveyed the scene. "0 casualties among friendlies. Repeat, all civilians and operatives accounted for and unharmed." I looked around at the wedding guests, who were slowly emerging from behind their protective cover, most still in shock from what they'd just witnessed. Secretary of Defense Matthews was dusting off his uniform while shaking his head in amazement. Tech billionaire Rodriguez was filming the aftermath with his phone, probably already planning how to turn this into a documentary. These people had come to what they thought was a simple family wedding, and instead witnessed the neutralization of an international assassination plot. "Ladies and gentlemen," I called out, my voice carrying across the reception area, "you may be wondering what exactly just happened here." The crowd turned toward me, and I could see the mixture of confusion, fear, and curiosity on their faces. These were powerful people, accustomed to being briefed on national security matters, but none of them had expected to become participants in such an operation. "My name is Victoria Ashford, and I'm the operational heir to Ashford Enterprises. What you've just witnessed was the culmination of a 3-year investigation into foreign intelligence operations targeting American national security assets." I gestured toward the captured operatives, who were being processed by my tactical teams with military efficiency. These individuals represent intelligence services from multiple hostile nations. They infiltrated this wedding venue with the intention of assassinating everyone in this room. A murmur ran through the crowd. Ambassador Chen raised her hand like she was in a briefing room. "Miss Ashford, how long have you known about this threat?" "We've been tracking the financial networks and communication patterns for months," I replied. "But we only identified the full scope of the conspiracy 4 days ago, when we discovered that someone within my own family was coordinating the attack." That's when Commander Blackstone appeared from the bridal preparation area, escorting Miranda in handcuffs. My aunt's elegant wedding attire now looked ridiculous given the circumstances. She was dressed for a celebration, but being led away for treason. The crowd fell silent as they recognized Miranda, someone most of them had met at various social functions over the years. The idea that a respected member of the Ashford family had been working with foreign enemies was almost too shocking to process. "Miranda Ashford," I announced, my voice carrying the cold authority I'd inherited from 4 generations of intelligence professionals, "has been selling classified American intelligence to hostile foreign governments for the past 3 years. Her actions directly led to the deaths of 7 American operatives and compromised dozens of ongoing intelligence operations." Miranda looked up at me, her face twisted with a hatred that was finally unconstrained by the need to maintain her loving aunt facade. "You have no idea what you've done," she snarled. "This was bigger than just one attack. You think capturing a few operatives stops anything?" "Actually," I said calmly, "capturing these operatives stops everything." I nodded to Agent Thompson, who activated a large display screen that had been disguised as part of the wedding decorations. The screen lit up with a comprehensive map showing intelligence networks across 3 continents. "While you were focused on today's attack," I continued, "our teams were simultaneously conducting operations in 12 different countries. Every safe house, every contact, every financial network you helped establish, all of it has been rolled up in coordinated strikes over the past 6 hours." Miranda's face went pale as she realized the scope of what we'd accomplished. The wedding hadn't just been a trap for the operatives in this room. It had been cover for a massive international counterintelligence operation. "The information you sold to foreign governments," I explained to the crowd, "was carefully crafted disinformation that led their intelligence services to expose their entire network structure. Every meeting you attended, every document you photographed, every secret you revealed was part of a larger plan to identify and eliminate foreign intelligence operations targeting American interests." Secretary of Defense Matthews stepped forward, his expression mixing admiration with concern. "Miss Ashford, are you telling us that your family has been conducting unauthorized intelligence operations on American soil?" "Not unauthorized," my father said, appearing from the crowd with a folder of official documents. "Everything we've done today was conducted under the authority of National Security Presidential Directive 51, with full coordination from the relevant federal agencies." He handed Matthews the documentation, which I knew contained authorizations from the highest levels of government. The Ashford family might be private contractors, but we never operated without official sanction when national security was at stake. "The FBI, CIA, and NSA have all been briefed on this operation," my father continued. "What you witnessed today was the culmination of the largest counterintelligence operation in American history, designed to eliminate foreign intelligence networks that have been operating in our country for decades." Agent Martinez appeared beside me with another secured tablet. "Miss Ashford, final tally from international operations: 47 hostile agents captured, 12 safe houses compromised, 6 major financial networks disrupted, and approximately 200 foreign intelligence assets neutralized worldwide." The numbers were staggering. What had started as my investigation into a stolen wedding dress had evolved into a global intelligence war, one that we had just definitively won. "There's more," Agent Martinez continued. "We've recovered approximately $50 million in assets that were being used to fund anti-American intelligence operations. Additionally, we've secured enough intelligence material to keep our analysts busy for the next 5 years." I looked at Miranda, who was now staring at the display screen with the horrified expression of someone finally understanding how completely she'd been outmaneuvered. "You used me," she whispered. "For 3 years," I confirmed. "Every piece of information you sold, every secret you revealed, every contact you made, all of it was carefully orchestrated to draw out the full extent of foreign intelligence operations targeting our country. You thought you were betraying the Ashford family for money. Actually, you were helping us identify and eliminate threats to American national security." Trevor was brought out from the bridal preparation room, also in handcuffs, his face showing the same shocked realization that Miranda was experiencing. Both of them had believed they were running sophisticated intelligence operations against us. Neither had realized they were actually participants in an even more sophisticated counterintelligence operation that we were running against them. "The Jason Whitmore who seduced your sister," I told Miranda, "was actually one of our deep cover operatives. He's been feeding false information to your foreign contacts for the past 18 months, while helping us map their entire network structure." Penelope appeared behind the tactical team, still wearing my stolen wedding dress, but now looking like she'd aged years in the past hour. "Jason was working for you?" she asked in disbelief. "Jason was protecting you," I clarified. "When we realized you were being used as an unwilling asset in Miranda's operation, we made sure someone was watching over you. His job was to keep you safe while helping us gather evidence against the people who were using you." The real Jason Whitmore stepped out from behind a column where he'd been coordinating communications, and I saw Penelope's face go through a complex series of emotions as she realized that the man she'd fallen in love with was actually a highly trained intelligence operative who had been assigned to protect her. "The engagement was real," he said simply. "Everything else was just cover." Miranda looked around the room at the captured operatives, the celebrating civilians, the display screens showing the collapse of intelligence networks she'd spent years building. Her life's work, her betrayal of her own family for recognition and money, had actually been turned against her enemies in the most comprehensive way possible. "You destroyed everything," she said hoarsely. "No," I corrected. "You destroyed everything. We just made sure your destruction served a useful purpose." As federal agents began processing the captured operatives and securing the intelligence materials we'd recovered, I realized the woman who had stolen my wedding dress and tried to steal my life had actually given me something far more valuable: the opportunity to prove that the next generation of Ashford leadership was ready for anything our enemies could devise. Miranda's downfall was complete, but her legacy would be the security her unwitting service had provided to the country she'd tried to betray. 6 months after the wedding that became a counterintelligence operation, I sat in a federal courthouse watching Miranda receive her sentence. The judge's words echoed through the packed courtroom as cameras from every major news network captured what had become known as the Wedding Day Trials, the prosecution of the largest foreign intelligence network ever uncovered on American soil. "Miranda Elizabeth Ashford," Judge Hamilton said, his voice carrying the weight of judicial authority, "you have been found guilty on 47 counts of espionage, conspiracy to commit murder, treason against the United States, and accessory to the deaths of 7 American intelligence operatives. The court sentences you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, to be served in the federal Supermax facility in Colorado." Miranda showed no emotion as the sentence was delivered, but I could see her hands trembling slightly as the reality of spending the rest of her life in solitary confinement finally registered. The woman who had craved recognition and respect for 30 years would spend her remaining decades in a windowless cell, remembered only as one of the most damaging traitors in American intelligence history. Behind me, I heard Penelope shift in her seat. My sister had testified during the trial, describing how Miranda had manipulated her into participating in what she believed was just a family wedding, while actually using her as cover for an assassination plot. The prosecution had been clear that Penelope was a victim, not a co-conspirator, but the psychological damage from learning that her entire relationship with Jason had begun as an intelligence operation was still evident. The defendants Trevor Montgomery and 17 foreign operatives, the judge continued, having already entered guilty pleas in exchange for cooperation with ongoing investigations, will be sentenced in separate proceedings. However, this court wishes to note that the intelligence provided through their cooperation has been instrumental in preventing additional attacks against American interests. Trevor had spent the past 6 months in federal detention, providing detailed information about the recruitment and training methods used by foreign intelligence services. His cooperation had been complete, but it wouldn't save him from spending the next 25 years in federal prison. The man I had planned to marry would be eligible for parole when he was 67 years old. As the court proceedings concluded and Miranda was led away in chains, I felt a complex mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Justice had been served, but it had come at the cost of destroying what remained of my relationship with both my sister and my former fiancé. The Victoria Ashford, who had discovered her missing wedding dress 6 months ago, had been naive enough to believe that family meant unconditional loyalty and love meant unconditional trust. The Victoria Ashford walking out of that courthouse knew better. "Miss Ashford," a reporter called out as I exited the federal building, "how do you feel about your aunt's sentence?" I paused on the courthouse steps, considering my words carefully. The past 6 months had taught me that everything I said in public would be analyzed by intelligence services around the world, looking for insights into how the Ashford family operated. Miranda Ashford betrayed her country, her family, and the memory of 7 brave Americans who died because of her actions, I said finally. The sentence reflects the severity of those crimes. Justice has been served. "What about the impact on your family business?" another reporter asked. "Ashford Enterprises has never been stronger," I replied truthfully. The successful completion of Operation Wedding Crasher has led to expanded contracts with federal agencies and international partners. When people threaten American interests, they learn why the Ashford family has been protecting this country for 4 generations. That evening, I found myself in my father's study, reviewing quarterly reports that showed the remarkable growth our company had experienced since the wedding operation. Every major corporation and government agency in America wanted to hire the intelligence firm that had orchestrated the largest counter-espionage victory in modern history. 47 new contracts this quarter, my father said, joining me with 2 glasses of whiskey. The Pentagon wants to expand our protective services. The State Department is requesting additional security assessments. Even the CIA is asking for consultation on counterintelligence techniques. Recognition through competence rather than betrayal, I observed, thinking about Miranda's desperate hunger for acknowledgement. She finally got the attention she wanted, just not the kind she expected. My father handed me a glass and settled into his leather chair. "There's something else we need to discuss, Victoria. The board met yesterday and voted unanimously to accelerate your succession timeline." I looked up from the financial reports, surprised. We had originally planned for me to take over as CEO in 2 years, after completing additional advanced training in international operations. "They believe your performance during the wedding operation demonstrates that you're ready for full leadership now," he continued. "The way you identified the threats, coordinated the response, and managed the international implications of the operation. That's the kind of strategic thinking this company needs in the modern intelligence environment." "What do you think?" I asked. My father smiled, and I saw pride mixed with the calculating assessment that every Ashford learned to apply to business decisions. "I think the daughter who walked into that wedding venue with a gun hidden in her purse and managed to neutralize an international conspiracy is more than ready to run this company." A knock on the study door interrupted our conversation. Commander Blackstone entered, carrying a secure communication device. "Miss Ashford, Mr. Ashford," she said formally, "we have a situation developing in Eastern Europe that requires immediate attention. Intelligence suggests that remnants of the networks we disrupted 6 months ago are attempting to reconstitute their operations. The State Department is requesting Ashford Enterprises' assistance in a preemptive response." I looked at the communication device, knowing that accepting this assignment would mark my first official operation as the future head of the company. Every decision I made would affect not just the success of the mission, but the lives of the operatives who would carry it out. "What's the timeline?" I asked. "Deployment in 72 hours. Full tactical team, deep cover insertion, estimated duration 6 months." 6 months in Eastern Europe, managing a complex international operation, while foreign intelligence services would be specifically targeting me because of my role in their defeat. It was exactly the kind of assignment that would prove whether I was truly ready for the responsibilities I was inheriting. "I'll take it," I said without hesitation. My father nodded approvingly. "Commander Blackstone, please inform the State Department that Ashford Enterprises accepts the assignment. Victoria will be operational commander." As Blackstone left to coordinate the mission details, my father raised his whiskey glass in a toast to the next generation of Ashford leadership, and to making sure our enemies never forget the cost of threatening American interests. I raised my own glass, thinking about the journey that had brought me to this moment. 6 months ago, I had been a woman whose biggest concern was wedding planning and venue selection. Tonight, I was about to assume command of one of the most powerful intelligence organizations in the world. "To family," I said, clinking my glass against his. "The kind you earn through loyalty, not the kind you inherit through blood." The phone in my secure purse buzzed with a text message from Jason Whitmore, who is now officially my brother-in-law after his real wedding to Penelope 3 months earlier. "Congratulations on the promotion. Penelope wanted me to tell you she's proud of you, even if she still doesn't entirely understand what you do for a living." I smiled, thinking about my sister slowly rebuilding her life with a man who had originally been assigned to protect her but had genuinely fallen in love with her in the process. Their relationship had survived the revelation that it began as an intelligence operation because they had chosen to build something real from the foundation of mutual protection and respect. Miranda, on the other hand, would spend the rest of her life in a concrete cell, having learned too late that recognition earned through betrayal was just another form of imprisonment. As I prepared for my first major operation as the future head of Ashford Enterprises, I realized that the wedding dress Miranda had stolen 6 months ago had been more than just fabric and lace. It had been a symbol of the naive woman I used to be, someone who believed that family loyalty was automatic, and that love meant never having to question someone's motives. The woman I had become didn't need that dress anymore. She had something much more valuable: the knowledge that real strength came from earning trust rather than demanding it, and that the best way to honor the people you loved was to protect them from the threats they never saw coming. Tomorrow, I would begin preparing for an operation that would take me halfway around the world to face enemies who wanted nothing more than to destroy everything my family had built. But tonight, I was content to sit in my father's study, reviewing intelligence reports and planning strategies for a future where American interests would always be protected by people who understood that some things were worth fighting for. The Ashford family legacy wasn't just about accumulating power or wealth. It was about standing between the people we loved and the darkness that wanted to consume them. And I had finally learned that lesson well enough to pass it on to the next generation. 1 year after the wedding that changed everything, I stood on the tarmac at a private airfield outside Prague, watching my security detail load equipment onto the jet that would take us back to American soil. The Eastern European operation had been a complete success, 3 months ahead of schedule, and with 0 casualties among our operatives. The intelligence networks that had attempted to reconstitute themselves after Miranda's betrayal had been systematically dismantled, their financial resources seized, and their leadership either captured or eliminated. But more importantly, I had proven to myself and to the international intelligence community that Victoria Ashford wasn't just the heir to a family business. I was a leader capable of protecting American interests anywhere in the world. "Final equipment check complete," Commander Blackstone reported, approaching me with the satisfied expression of someone whose operation had exceeded all expectations. Prague Station is secured, all assets accounted for, and the Czech government has officially thanked the American State Department for our assistance in neutralizing hostile foreign operations on their soil. I nodded, reviewing the mission summary on my secure tablet. In 6 months of operations, we had identified and eliminated 17 sleeper cells, recovered $8 million in misappropriated funds, and rescued 12 American citizens who had been targeted for assassination by revenge-seeking remnants of the network Miranda had helped build. "Any word from Washington on our next assignment?" I asked. "The Pentagon wants us in Southeast Asia within the month," Blackstone replied. "Apparently there's a situation developing with Chinese intelligence operations that requires the kind of surgical precision only Ashford Enterprises can provide." I smiled at that. Surgical precision. It was exactly the kind of reputation my great-grandfather had envisioned when he started this company. My grandfather had built during World War II. My father had perfected during the Cold War. And I was now carrying forward into the modern era of intelligence warfare. My secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message from my father. "Welcome home celebration scheduled for tomorrow evening. The President will be attending to personally thank you for your service to the country. Wear something appropriate for receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Love, Dad." The Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the United States, being awarded to me for my role in exposing and neutralizing the largest foreign intelligence threat to American national security in decades. 1 year ago, I had been planning centerpieces and tasting wedding cakes. Now I was receiving recognition from the President of the United States for protecting the country from enemies most citizens would never even know existed. As our jet lifted off from Prague and turned toward home, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this moment. The woman who had discovered her missing wedding dress and sister's betrayal felt like a different person entirely. Someone naive and trusting, who had believed that family meant automatic loyalty and that love meant never having to question someone's motives. The woman flying back to America had learned that real family was built through shared sacrifice and proven loyalty. That love meant protecting the people you cared about from threats they couldn't see coming, and that sometimes the greatest act of love was being strong enough to stand between the people you cherished and the darkness that wanted to destroy them. I opened my laptop and began reviewing personnel files for our next operation. Agent Martinez, the brother of the operative killed because of Miranda's betrayal, had proven himself exceptional during the Prague mission. Agent Thompson, whose sister had died in Singapore, had shown remarkable tactical intelligence and strategic thinking. These weren't just employees anymore. They were family members who had earned their place through competence, courage, and absolute dedication to protecting American interests. Commander Blackstone settled into the seat across from me, her own laptop open to operational planning documents. "Victoria, I wanted to discuss something with you before we land." "What's on your mind, Sarah?" "The Prague operation marked your 15th successful mission as operational commander. Your track record is now better than any intelligence leader in modern American history. The question is, what do you want to do with that success?" I looked at her curiously. "What do you mean?" "I mean that you've proven yourself capable of running operations anywhere in the world. You could expand Ashford Enterprises into a global intelligence empire, taking contracts from every friendly government and corporation willing to pay for the best protection money can buy. You could become the most powerful private intelligence leader in history." "Or?" I asked, sensing there was more to her observation. "Or you could focus on what you've always done best, protecting the people and principles that matter most to you. The choice isn't about money or power anymore, Victoria. It's about what kind of legacy you want to build." I considered her words as I watched the European countryside pass beneath us. The question wasn't whether I could build a global intelligence empire. The Prague operation had proven that I had the skills and resources to expand Ashford Enterprises into any market I chose. The question was whether expansion was what I actually wanted. I thought about Penelope, who had finally found genuine happiness with Jason after surviving the trauma of learning that her entire life had been manipulated by people she trusted. I thought about my father, who had spent 40 years building a company that protected American interests without sacrificing American values. I thought about the 7 agents who had died because Miranda chose money over loyalty, and the hundreds of operatives who now trusted me to make decisions that would either bring them home safely or send them into situations where they might not survive. I don't want to rule the world, Sarah, I said finally. I want to protect the part of it that matters to me. She smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number, which immediately put me on alert. But when I read it, I realized it wasn't a threat. It was a message from one of the federal prosecutors who had handled Miranda's trial. Miss Ashford, thought you should know that Miranda requested to see you during her transfer to the Colorado Supermax facility. She wanted to pass along a message. I stared at the text, wondering what Miranda could possibly want to say to me after everything that had happened. Against my better judgment, I found myself curious about what the woman who had spent 3 years betraying her own family might have learned during a year in federal detention. What did she say? I texted back. She said to tell you that she finally understands the difference between earning respect and demanding it. She said you became everything she always wanted to be, and that she's proud of the woman you've become. She also said to tell you that she's sorry. I read the message twice, trying to process the idea that Miranda, who had orchestrated the deaths of innocent people and tried to destroy everything my family had built, was now expressing pride in my achievements. Part of me wondered if it was genuine remorse or just another manipulation from someone who had spent decades perfecting the art of deception. But ultimately it didn't matter. Miranda's opinion of me was no longer relevant to my life or my decisions. What mattered was the responsibility I carried to the people who depended on me, the country I served, and the legacy I was building for future generations. As our jet began its descent toward American airspace, I opened a new document on my laptop and began writing what would become the Ashford Enterprises mission statement for the next decade. We exist to protect American interests and American values through intelligence, courage, and unwavering commitment to the people who trust us with their lives. We measure our success not by the power we accumulate, but by the threats we eliminate and the innocent lives we preserve. We are the shield between the people we love and the darkness that seeks to destroy them. Tomorrow evening I would receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom in recognition of my service to the country. But tonight, flying home after another successful mission, I realized that the real reward wasn't the medal or the recognition or the expanded contracts that would make Ashford Enterprises even more successful. The real reward was knowing that somewhere in America people were sleeping safely in their beds because of decisions I had made and operations I had planned. Children were growing up in a world slightly safer because foreign enemies had learned that threatening American interests came with consequences they couldn't imagine. Families were intact because intelligence operations had been stopped before they could destroy innocent lives. That was the legacy I wanted to build. Not an empire of power and influence, but a fortress of protection around the things that mattered most. As we touched down on American soil, I thought about the wedding dress that had started this entire journey. A symbol of the naive woman I used to be. Someone who believed that the most important thing in life was finding the perfect dress for the perfect day with the perfect man. I had learned that the perfect day was any day when the people you loved were safe. The perfect dress was whatever armor you needed to protect them. And the perfect man was anyone who would stand beside you in that protection, whether as a partner, a colleague, or a trusted friend. The Victoria Ashford who had discovered her missing dress 1 year ago had been planning a wedding. The Victoria Ashford stepping off this plane was building something much more important. A future where betrayal had consequences, loyalty had meaning, and family was defined by the people who proved they deserved your trust. And for the first time since this journey began, I was exactly where I was meant to be. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.